Episode 110 of the Q&A today, folks. Let's get right to it. Like the video. On safety bar squats, what cue do you use with your hands? Do you push up on the handles or pull down? I've honestly been asked this like 10 times. I'm not even kidding. And I don't think about this at all. And there must be somebody out there, like some influencer, probably a powerlifter, who's making it seem like this is a really big deal, what you do with your hands on a safety bar squat. It isn't. The more important thing when you're doing a squat is paying attention to what's happening with your hips. If you want to stay in your quads, keep your hips forward. The handles. What books do you recommend to learn more about hypertrophy and nutrition? So I gotta be honest with you, man, I get asked this a lot and I always feel bad because I didn't really learn most of what I know from books. It's like 10 to 15 years of obsessively reading articles and watching videos on YouTube. That said, there are some books that can cut the learning curve, but they can't eliminate it. Check out anything by Renaissance Periodization, Greg Nuckols, or Eric Helms. Thoughts on Smith back squats? Can you please take the time to write like an actual question? I mean, what am I even supposed to say to this? Smith squats are an exercise that is performed in the Smith machine. I mean, what do you want me to say? Smith squats are a good hypertrophy squat exercise. If your gym doesn't have a good hack or a good pendulum, it's probably your best bet from a stable squat pattern perspective. You can put your feet a little bit in front of you, which makes it easier to get really deep compared to a regular free squat. So it's a solid movement, but I mean, I would still pick a great hack or a great pendulum if I wanted to go with the machine. Have you ever had a back tweak so bad that you couldn't stand up or walk? I felt my lower back on deadlifts. What should I do? Should I go to the doctor to get an MRI? Should I find a good PT? Give me the doctor filter. Dude, and all the time that you spent writing that question, you could have picked up the phone and called an actual medical professional and asked them what to do and gotten a real medical opinion rather than asking the lifting guy on Instagram. I can tell you that these types of tweaks happen to people all the time. Sometimes they just go away on their own, but you should really consult a medical professional. Single leg press instead of lunges. I do barbell squats, but Bulgarian split squats and lunges are hard to stabilize. Well, it's not going to be an equivalent substitution. Yes, you're going to get the unilateral aspect, but you're not going to get the same degree of stretch on the glute that you can with different kinds of split squat and lunge setups. I mean, there are parts of the glute as well that like the main function of the muscle is stabilization. So it just depends on why you're doing the exercise. If you're using that slot as an additional quad volume, then sure, you can plug in a single leg press. But if you're using those slots for primarily a glute exercise with some quad, which is what I think is the best use of a Bulgarian split squat or a lunge for that matter, I don't think that's an equivalent substitution, and you're going to get a much worse glute stimulus, and that's primarily, depending on your setup, going to be quad volume instead of glute volume. So just know what you're doing. Would you ever serve in the military? Not as a career. Absolutely not as a career. If you mean like if the country was being invaded and like everyone that I've ever known and loved was under threat of attack, well, that's a completely different story, right? But if you mean as a career option, absolutely not. And that's not me saying anything negative about the military as a career option. I mean, you can get your college paid for, you can get some exciting job opportunities and potentially a pension depending on how long you stay involved. You just have to understand that I was born anti-authority. Like both of my parents were Christian ministers. And by the time I was 13, I was saying that I was an atheist and arguing about theism with people. I'm just not the kind of person that can take orders from others and be told what to do and when to do it. That's why I've been my own boss since I was literally a teenager. I've never worked for anyone else for longer than 6 months. Why would somebody do loo raises instead of lateral raises? I mean, it totally depends on the goal of the exercise. I think if your only goal is to stimulate side delt hypertrophy, you wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense because the loo raise, as soon as you get above 90 degrees of abduction, that's primarily front delt and trap. However, that is why you'd want to include a loo raise as well, because you're getting more muscle tissue with the same movement. It also trains an integrated function and kind of keeps that whole shoulder complex working well and healthy. What does your weekly training schedule look like? I train every other day on a full body split. So some weeks I train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, other weeks Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but every 48 hours I do this exact same workout and add some weight or reps. Inspiring recovery. Thank you. Have you had any injury scares along the way, like little pulls, etc.? Not really, man. It's been a very straightforward recovery. I have been extremely mindful of pain the entire time. Haven't really tried anything that I didn't think I was going to be capable of. I guess the closest that I've come to something like that is there has been on a few occasions where I've torn scar tissue. And the very first second that you do it, you're like, oh shit, what was that? But like, it's a very distinct kind of tearing versus like when the tendon tore, it sounded like somebody was like ripping a phone book in half. Very intense, loud tearing, cracking. Whereas like when you tear scar tissue, it's just like, I don't know, it's like a zipper or something. It's completely different sensation and there's no pain afterwards. Is conventional deadlift still good for intermediates because they're not strong enough yet to have a poor SFR? So you kind of have to forget about beginner, advanced, intermediate distinctions, and even to a certain degree, you have to like forget about absolute strength distinctions as well, because some people are built to deadlift. They deadlift very upright with a nice, easy, flat back, and they can handle more deadlift volume than somebody with short arms and a long torso who's very bent over and relies on backgrounding to do most of their pulls. So the real question that you have to ask yourself is, can you do deadlifts on your split without decreasing frequency and orienting your entire program around the deadlift? Can you still progress it on that normal frequency on a regular basis without large swings in performance? If the answer is yes, cool. As long as deadlifts aren't interfering with other lifts, you can still do them regardless of training status. Did you take out lateral raises? Yes, I did. Please understand, though, that's not me making a statement about lateral raises. The fact is I am on a full body split right now with a lot of exercises per session, and I'm trying to keep time and fatigue manageable. In addition to that, I'm doing behind the neck presses, which are basically a press in the frontal plane. And when you are below 90 degrees of abduction, the side delts have the best leverage to do that work. So my side delts are still getting worked in the behind the neck press. I will be adding lateral raises back in at some point in the future. Did it hurt when you were hit by gamma radiation? No, man, trend doesn't hurt when it goes in. Okay, it hurts once it's in and you start coughing. Just kidding, children. I do not use trend, seriously. I can't sleep if I take more than like 150 milligrams of it a week, so I never go any higher than that. That said, I started off just like everybody else. We're all going to make it, bros. We're all going to make it. That is the end of today's episode 110, I believe. So remember to like this when it comes out on YouTube. You can become a Patreon supporter for $1 a month if you really like the Q&As. If you'd like to work with me directly for coaching, shoot me a DM on Instagram, or you can find my email in the description box on YouTube. Same thing with my ebooks, link in the description box on YouTube, link in my bio on Instagram. I'll be back on Thursday for more full body shenanigans. So enjoy the rest of your week, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.